Hi, I'm Shania Puri, and welcome to It's Not Just You. This is a podcast about neurodiversity, what it means, how different brains work, and why so many students feel misunderstood in school. I started this because I've seen how many people are labeled as distracted, lazy, or not trying hard enough, when in reality, they might just be thinking and learning differently. In this podcast, I'll be breaking down topics like ADHD, autism, learning differences, and mental health in a way that actually makes sense. I'll also be talking to teachers, parents, students, and experts to get real perspectives. If you've ever felt like your brain doesn't work the way it's supposed to, or you just want to understand it better, you're in the right place. This episode is titled, Your Brain Isn't Broken, It's Just Wired Differently. Let's get started. Are there situations when you do your best and it seems like it's not good enough for others? For example, when you come to a lesson and you are really ready to pay attention to what the teacher is saying, but for some reason your thoughts keep going elsewhere? Or you understand things, just not the way they're being taught. Or maybe you've been called things like lazy, distracted, too much, too quiet, or not trying hard enough. And the more you hear this from others, the more convinced you become that there is actually something wrong with you. But none of that is true? What if the problem isn't you, but the way we expect every brain to work the same? There's a word for this. It's called neurodiversity. And it sounds complicated, but it's actually really simple. Neurodiversity just means that there is no one quote-unquote normal brain. People's brains are wired differently, and those differences aren't automatically problems. They're just different ways of thinking, learning, and experiencing the world. Some people's brains are wired to focus easily for long periods of time. Some are wired to think really creatively and jump between ideas quickly. Some process emotions really deeply, and others notice patterns and details that most people completely miss. None of these ways of thinking are wrong. They're just different. You've probably heard of things like ADHD, autism, dyslexia, or anxiety. Most of the time, people talk about these like they're problems that need to be fixed. But neurodiversity flips that idea. It says that these aren't just deficits, they're differences. For example, someone with ADHD might struggle to stay still or stay focused in a quiet classroom for a long time. But that same brain might be incredibly creative, energetic, and able to think in ways that other people can't. Someone with dyslexia might struggle with reading or writing in the traditional way, but often has really strong problem-solving skills or big picture thinking. Someone on the autism spectrum might experience social situations differently, but can have deep focus, unique perspectives, and strong attention to detail. So, if these are just differences, why do so many students feel like they're falling behind? A big part of it is the system we're in, especially school. Think about how school is structured. You're expected to sit still for long periods of time, focus on one thing at a time, learn in one specific way, and move at the same pace as everyone else. You're tested in the same formats, graded on the same timelines, and expected to follow the same routines. But not every brain works like that. Some people learn better when they move around. Some people need to talk things out to understand them. Some people understand concepts really deeply but struggle with memorization or time tests. Some people need more time to process information, but others process things so quickly that they get bored and lose focus. When your brain doesn't match the way that the system is designed, things start to feel harder. Not because you're less capable, but because you're being asked to learn in a way that doesn't fit who you are. But here's what usually happens. Instead of thinking, this system doesn't work for me, most students start thinking, I don't work. And that turns into, I'm not smart enough, or I'm behind, or I'm just not good at school. And those thoughts really stick, and they affect confidence and motivation and how you see yourself over time. And that's where the real problem starts, not in how your brain works, but in how you interpret it. So it is extremely necessary to reframe this. And you should instead say, you are not behind, you are not broken, you are not the problem. Systems like, for example, school, were designed for a very specific type of learner. And if your brain works differently, of course it's going to feel harder sometimes. That doesn't mean you're less intelligent or less capable. It just means that you are being measured in a way that doesn't match how you think. It's like judging a fish by how well it can climb a tree. If the fish fails, it doesn't mean that it's not smart. It means the test doesn't match what it's built to do. In the same way, if you're struggling in a certain environment, it doesn't automatically mean something is wrong with you. It might just mean that the environment is not built for you. That doesn't mean challenges aren't real. They are. Struggling to focus, feeling overwhelmed, having difficulty with certain subjects are all things that really do matter. But the goal shouldn't always be to force every brain in the same mold. And it is necessary to understand that every brain is different. The goal should be understanding how different brains work and figuring out how to support them better. Adapting designs in all of these schools is important as well. There are so many students right now who just feel like they don't fit, who feel like they're constantly trying harder than everyone else just to keep up, who feel like they're failing at something everyone else seems to manage very easily. And a lot of the time, no one ever explains to them why that is the case. So that's why I wanted to start this podcast. I'm a student just like you, and I have seen how many people feel misunderstood in school, at home, and even by themselves. And honestly, a lot of the conversations around this topic either feel too complicated or too clinical, like they're not meant for us to actually understand. So this podcast is about changing that. It's about breaking things down in a way that actually makes sense. No complicated terms, no judgment, and just real, honest, and truthful conversations about how different brains work. In the next episodes, we are going to go deeper than this and deeper into this. We will talk about how to recognize signs of things like ADHD or autism, especially in kids and adolescents, including the signs that most people miss. We'll talk about what it actually feels like to grow up neurodivergent, and not just from a textbook definition, but from real experiences. And to bring in those real experiences, we're going to bring in other voices, parents, caregivers, experts. So you're not just hearing one perspective, you're hearing real stories, real challenges, and real insights. And we'll talk about how parents and teachers and even friends can better support people whose brains work differently. But for now, I want to leave you with this. If you've ever felt like you don't fit in, like you're trying your hardest and it doesn't seem like enough, like something about you just doesn't match what's expected, you're not broken. Your brain might just be wired differently, and understanding that can change everything. If this podcast and this episode resonated with you, please follow the podcast so you don't miss the next episode, where we will be bringing in a very important, very exciting guest speaker. And please share this with someone who might need to hear it too. Feel free to reach out to me as well, because the more we understand how different brains work, the better we can support each other and ourselves. Thank you for listening.